You are listening to Additional Crew Film Review with Nick Meyer and Andrew Gomez. These spoiler-heavy reviews are meant for entertainment purposes only. Please do not attempt anything said on this show at home. Now sit back, relax, and listen to these two dinguses talk about a movie. Enjoy! Well, there's a vast network, right? An ocean of possibilities. I like dogs. I used to raise rabbits. I've always loved animals, their nature, how they think. I have seen dogs reason their way out of problems. I watched them think through the trickiest situations. Do you have a couple bucks I could borrow? I've got this damn podcast. Welcome to Additional Crew. We are your hosts. I am Nick, and with me we have Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, what's up, Nick? Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well.
100%. Yeah, hope you're doing well out there whenever you listen to this. Life's life, right?
Life is life, and one thing we have all in common is that with life comes death, and unfortunately, we've lost a major soul on this planet. And I think you have a bit to say more about this, Nick.
Yeah. So we're talking today about David Lynch's Inland Empire. It's an enigmatic film that's ripe for discussions and conclusions. However, first, I'd like to once again say rest in peace to David Lynch. He passed away on January 15th, 2025, this year, if you're listening to this as it came out new. And I'm going to just take a few minutes to say some words that I wrote out for him here. So I think a lot of people that love movies and music as much as we do, they typically have some creators that help to inspire their taste preferences, or at the very least, they like reinforce that their taste is okay and they can be different than that of others. Personally, in my life, I had three specific people, and this is from like a pretty young age that I had these three specific people. So I had David Bowie, who was like in music for me, David Lynch, and John Carpenter. So those are the three. So rest in peace, Bowie. We lost him in 2016. We lose David Lynch in 2025. John Carpenter, I don't want to be a harbinger of bad news, so stick with us. David Lynch impacted my appreciation for movies in such a thorough manner, it was almost impossible to put into words. I remember like in my late teens, I downloaded this mindfuck movie pack from a pirating website. And I would just go through these movies, right? Because it was movies I'd never seen before. And it was like, okay, these are the interesting ones. That's what I thought at the time. And I had loved movies at the time, but my appreciation was truly just kind of coming into existence. So I remember specifically, this is a very specific memory. I got to Eraserhead in this movie pack, and I had this Acer Aspire netbook, and I put it on my chest, and I was just lying down on my bed watching Eraserhead with my headphones in, and the screen like 30, no, not even 30, like 14, 15 inches away from my face. And it was like I was sucked into another world. It sat with me in a way that like a movie had never sat with me up to that point, and I just craved more. I felt like it helped my mind expand to the possibilities that true artistry can bring when you start breaking down the templates that have laid before you. That's sort of gift that you can really only truly get from someone that is an artist. And a quote from Lynch gives an idea of the perspective he had. I don't know why people expect art to make sense. They accept the fact that life doesn't make sense. Yeah, I love that quote because it was like it's such like a mind breaker. Like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
David Lynch's work has even led to a community of people out there that get together based solely on their love of his work.
Yeah.
That's not really unique in itself, but the Twin Peaks Day and the community surrounding it really are truly special. I mean, it's been 30 years since this show came out, and these people are still meeting every single year. They're still having panels every single year. They still have people coming out every single year for a show that was canceled after season 2.
It was canceled?
It was canceled after season 2. I had the privilege actually to work with Vinny. So shout out to him. We worked together at the record store. He goes by 12 Rainbow Trouts on Instagram. If you want to see passion in this community, check out that Instagram page. Vinny is one of the most devout people that I've known for any art of any kind, and it is Twin Peaks, and he helped me find a lot of appreciation for it.
Yeah, if they're okay with it, we should post it on IG. I'll be able to follow that
I,
easier.
I'll double check him, but like 100%. And he deserves it.
Yeah, it's
So
cool.
it is really cool. He has actually gotten on panels and everything and talked with actual stat like members who have
Oh wow,
done the
neat.
production.
Yeah,
So, yeah, Vinny, love your stuff. I always check it out. I don't think we talk enough about it, but I love your stuff. Now I'm not here to say everything Lynch ever did was perfect. As a matter of fact, we're having a podcast to talk about a movie where we're probably going to say it wasn't all perfect. Twin Peaks was perfect. But instead, I'm here to say thanks to David Lynch for truly expanding my understanding of this universe we have been given. I appreciate it. Now, on with the show. And next up here, we would normally have a music review. So I'm going to do that.
send it.
Now, I didn't have like an album here that I found particularly entertaining in this space. Like the beginning of 2025 hasn't, like, nothing's really hit me super hard, right?
Sure.
But there has been a little single that came out recently. It's by
Yeah.
a group called I'm gonna call them Pigs X7 because their name is actually just Pigs, 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 Pigs.
Okay. Makes it
Um,
easier. You have
yeah,
to
so
cut that out every time.
yeah.
That's unfortunate.
uh, so they're a UK based metal band. They came out with an album, or not an album, excuse me, a single. Main track off of it's called Stitches. The B side is called Detroit. But I'm not usually like into the stoner doom metal a ton.
Sure.
However, these particular tracks hit so hard. I did like their album Visceral when it came out in 2020, but they've had a whole album that I didn't like care for since then. Their new album comes out in April. They've got this like stoner doom metal vibe that like a lot of Black Sabbath copycats kind of have.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have a lead singer that kind of sounds similar to the guy from Idols. But for some reason, this particular group that has these things that I would say are like pretty similar to a lot of other bands in their genre, they've got a real good knack at setting tone and ambiance in these songs.
Okay.
It's the riffs are good. They don't overstay their welcome, and stoner doom metal songs are kind of long.
Yeah.
Um,
How long is
but
this
they
one?
said
This track?
I think these tracks are 6 minutes and 5 minutes and a
Oh,
half.
it's
So,
not unbearably long, but
mm-hmm,
longer
mm-hmm.
for most.
Um, and it's just a sound that you'll be familiar with if you like doom metal, but it's just such a competent, well-made version of it that I just immediately fell in love with it. And both songs, Stitches and Detroit, have very different vibes. Detroit seems like more of a downtrodden, anxious song. Stitches, I'm not going to say it's not anxious, but it is a little bit more fast-paced and a little bit more like you can get into the riff groove a little bit easier. I like both for different reasons. They both sit in a really specific lane for me. Check it out. I think the album in April is going to be fantastic if the singles are the quality that we can expect from that album.
Yeah, the Wikipedia page does not give me a whole lot. Can you remind me of the name that you had said
Pit,
that these
uh,
tracks have?
so Stitches in Detroit.
Okay, you did say that,
Yeah.
and it's like a two-sided single, probably like that.
I
Is this how
so
they
they released
look
Detroit
like?
first,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then they released Stitches second, but Stitches also has a B side of Detroit. So with Spotify, I'm not really sure how it works as far as
Yeah.
like what to call it. I'm
Okay.
gonna call it in a single because that's just the terminology I know, but it's whatever. Stitch is the newer song, and I think Detroit came out in late 2024, whereas Stitches has come out this year, and then the whole album comes out in April. I'm just really excited for it because this kind of stoner doom metal. There's a ton of bands that do it, and I like the sound, but they all kind of like wash out after a while. It's just kind of boring because if you're hearing the same three songs over and over again. So when someone comes out and does it really well, I'm like, oh hell yeah, this is the shit, and they seem to do it really well.
Yeah,
So
I can't think of a lot of artists that I'm too familiar with. There's one that comes to mind that has like a purple-ish album cover. I think it's even called Purple. I have to get back to you on
mm-hmm.
that. But Pig Sevenfold,
Yeah.
you got it.
Six sevenfold. Website's Pigs X7. So that's where I got that name from. Yeah, check it out. And that's the music review because we're gonna be getting into a lot of shit. So Andrew, I hear you went snowboarding. What's up, man?
Oh yeah, dude. I went to Boreal for I think for the first time. If I've gone before, I cannot recall. And yeah, just quick recap on snowboarding. Uh, I did it. I'm not gonna do it again. I was decent at it, but falling on your tailbone once is enough for me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not at
Mm-hmm.
the age where I could keep this up. I'm still feeling the impact of that one fall 2 weeks after the fact. Uh, I
Damn.
should be
Okay.
fine, hopefully. But yeah,
Does it hurt
not.
more when you're sitting or when you're standing?
I think neither. Early on, it was both of that, but now it's just when I walk.
Oh, okay. Fair.
So
Fair.
not an experience I want to do again. What I will say is after doing snowboarding myself, I have such high respect for those who can do tricks and can balance and do all the amazing stuff that snowboarders can do. Like
Can
that is a tricky sport.
Yeah, can you imagine the amount of shit they ate to get to that point?
Dude, you're either a savant and land on this on a board and it's like
Mm-hmm.
second nature, or you grinded and you were determined.
Yeah,
I can't imagine one or the other.
it's something else, and it's funny because being able to skateboard, you totally go into it. You're like, I can fucking do this. It's just a board. We got this, and it's
And it's
similar
not.
enough that you can like kind of stand up, but it is different enough that it really fucks you up.
It really does because your mind will sometimes pretend it's a skateboard and do
Mm-hmm.
skateboard activities when you should be doing snowboard activities.
Yeah,
And that's how
fair.
you land on your ass and with a fucking hurt tailbone.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm done. That was
Well,
my experience. That's all I have to say.
I'm glad you got the experience though. Um, it's fun to say you at least did it.
Exactly.
Uh, so we're gonna move into some media reviews. I'm gonna talk about a book. Um,
Cool.
yeah. So I in the time that we spoke, I actually was able to finish another book. It's called Mean Spirited by Nick Roberts. It was released in March 15th of 2024. It's a pretty recent book.
Oh, wow.
This is one that like some online forums had told me was good, and I was just like, all
Okay.
right, fuck it, whatever, let's try it. So Mean Spirited is a story about a dog that is haunted by ghosts. That
Cool
sounds
premise.
dumb,
You
and
sound dumb.
it sounds really stupid. But most of my hesitancy on the book came from how dumb that premise sounded. I was
Okay.
like, "There's no way that this could be good. A haunting story about a dog that's being haunted. That's stupid." With that said, once you get past like the creepy pasta introduction, that
Uh-huh.
it doesn't make like a ton of sense, and you're left with something that is actually pretty intriguing.
Nice.
Character development exists in two characters and is important, but it's not really the full point of this book. What the point actually is the atmosphere and dread the scenes managed to build. And for a book, it actually has like a pretty palpable atmosphere. It reminds me almost of a similar tone to the first Smile movie. Even once bad things start happening, they get continually worse, and you can feel the darkness. And it's got like this huge amount of power that the ghosts have in this story, and the imagery just keeps getting more and more bizarre, more and more creepy, and they manage to find ways to kind of like subvert your expectations of what's going to happen. None of it's like necessarily revolutionary, but all of it is just like really competently well done. And as I'm going through this, I can pretty much picture the movie that it would be. And I think those sort of books that have just enough details to let you do that, and they omit enough details to let your imagination step in the rest of the way, are they're a good middle ground for me. Like it's not going to change your life, but it is a very entertaining and enjoyable reading, and it does something that almost no horror books and almost no horror movies managed to do. It stuck the fucking landing. The ending made sense and was good. It was a
Nice.
compelling and fun read. I am giving it an 8 out of 10 for my
Ooh.
arbitrary book review score.
Yeah. Read into it as much as you want with that score.
Yeah, I don't have a good reason for that. It's just that's the vibes.
That's it.
Um,
And we'll have this movie out in 2 years, I'm sure.
I hope so. I really do. It would be a really good movie. It'd be a really good movie, honestly. Andrew, Present to me your review of Anora.
Oh man, perfect segue because good movie, good movie. Anora. Um, I saw this trailer. I don't know, like 2 or 3 months ago. I was like, I want to watch this movie. The trailer looks interesting, colorful. It's a neon film production, and so I was stoked off the trailer alone. And honestly, for myself, it uh, it lived up to my expectations personally because um, from what I got from the trailer, it gave me very much a modern day Pretty Woman, and I think a lot of people have been saying this lately with this film. And I haven't seen Pretty Woman myself, but from what I saw from the trailers in that film and what I've heard about that movie, it gave me some resemblance to Anora because it follows a, uh, a stripper on her journey to through a relationship, and this relationship happens at light speed because uh, without going too much into the film, directed by Sean Baker, also by the way, and the stripper who I was just discussing about is played by Mikey Madsen. Amazing performance. I think she really sold herself well as a stripper. I can only imagine that's how a life of a stripper would be somewhat like. I can't speak on what a stripper life is like, but this played into the character so well, and it really felt new to watch a story like this unfold. And I think if you're somebody who is very much character driven and story driven based, I think this is well worth your time. It is a fun and interesting film that has an assortment of characters. The love interest of Anora is played by, I'm gonna butcher his name. I'm just gonna say his first name. His name is Mark. He has a very Russian last name, so I'm not gonna try to butcher his last name. But it's cool. I mentioned he's Russian because he's actually Russian, unlike some other films that have been coming out lately. Uh, that's also being awarded for many Oscars. I won't name the name, but I'll let you piece that together what you will with it. And this actor Mark is actually Russian, and he plays Vanya, and his character is very annoying. But I think it plays very much into the character because Vanya is like 21 years old, and so he's very annoying.
Mm-hmm.
I think even Mark is 21 or 22. So just hitting the marks
Uh,
so well to the point where like every character seems believable and no one feels forced in this film. You feel like you're actually watching these characters in real life. Like
sick.
there's not a lot of like disbelief. And again, this is a movie that's being nominated for some Academy Awards, including Best Picture, uh, Best Director, Best Actress, and Best Supporting Actor. Some like up against some competition for sure. So I'm hoping they come out with at least one Oscar, but we'll see. I think it's just cool to get this type of film out there and recognized, and hopefully more people watch it. The last thing I'll say about this is that Sean Baker did this film, and with I mean $6 million isn't nothing to scoff at, but that's a pretty small budget for a Oscar directed film at this well Oscar nominated directed film, and the box office for this film is 34.6. So it made its money 5 times.
Yeah, it was. I remember hearing an interview from Sean Baker, and he talked about this movie, and he talked about like adult dramas, and essentially how character-driven adult dramas had just kind of died off over the last few years. Is like either you're getting these crazy movies, or you're getting superhero movies, or you're getting horror movies, and nothing in between. He's like he just was set out to make this character-driven adult drama movie that also had like tension and interesting plots, and it sounds like he did pretty well.
Yeah, he served up a very nice screenplay, and again, it was written and directed by Sean Baker. Can't give this movie enough praises. I really enjoyed the watch, and I'll be interested to watch it again. I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10.
Damn. Okay. This is one I've been interested in. Now, real quick, I have one question for you based on that. Is the movie you're throwing shade at Emilia Perez?
I'll yeah, I mean, basically,
It's all right. It's all right, man.
an answer in of itself. Yeah, dude, that movie's been a hell of heat, like so much heat, and I was trying to avoid name dropping that one because, I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't plan on watching it, so I'm not here to like completely bash on it. But just watching the scathing reviews on YouTube um, from other pundits and critics alike, they're just dog shitting on this film. And again, I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to say a whole lot. But what I will say is I think the director highly disrespected, from what I'm hearing, highly disrespected the Mexican culture, and that's a no-go for me.
That's kind of what I've heard. So that's why I asked the question. Like, it sounds like this one movie that's getting a lot of award nominations is not respectful to people. Which, okay, we'll move on because I haven't seen it either. Maybe we'll get there. I'm going to talk about another neon movie.
Cool. Go for it.
And this movie is the movie Presence.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, this movie is still in theaters. I'm going to give you some quotes here because I think this movie should have been renamed. This movie should have been renamed to This Was Us or This Is Us, the Halloween special.
Are you talking This Is Us, like the ABC show?
Yeah. So
I don't know a whole lot about that show, but all I could give you some idea of what you're gonna throw at me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's some interesting drama and family stuff in here.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think it was aided by this ghost plot at all. The marketers for this film really need to learn how to set up expectations for a film. Like, I don't care about her hyperbole when someone's like, oh, it's the scariest movie of the year. It's the funniest movie of the year, right? Whatever. That's what a marketer's job is. They have to say that shit for every single movie. That's fine. I don't care about hyperbole.
Okay.
That's to be expected. But Presence is straight up not a horror movie. It's not a thriller movie. It doesn't even have moments of scare. Not one. Not even moments of tension.
That's crazy.
It's a full-on family drama.
Oh my gosh.
It does have some nuggets hidden in here. They can be interesting, but they're almost overshadowed by the lousy ghost framing of this movie that doesn't make any sense, and it really like feels like it just loses the point of the movie. I don't recommend this. It feels like it doesn't respect the viewer's time, and if you've seen the movie, I have to ask everyone, what was the mother's legal job? It is so rude that they never explain that after making it a plot point for like 10, 15 minutes. And they talk about this guy's going to divorce her. She's going to get arrested. She gets drunk. She talks to her kid and then they just drop it. So that way they can talk about the Teflon killer. 2 out of 10. I hated that movie.
Oh, dang. 2 out of 10. Lucy Liu would not be happy with that score.
I mean, the acting was bad. The plot was nonsensical. They just kept dropping stuff over and over again. The only thing interesting was the gimmick of being from the ghost perspective, but that doesn't make a movie, especially when it's not about the ghost. There was like a fairly competent twist at the end, but by that point I was like, fuck all this.
This movie is not very Julia.
No. And Julia and the guy from This Is Us were the best parts of the movie. Because the guy from This Is Us modeled good parenting behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really what I wanted from this movie, but he did. So, okay. There's your 2 points. Oh, that was a bad one. Don't watch Presence. And Neon, seriously.
Rotten Tomatoes has this at 87%. I don't know. I'm not sure who's helping float these numbers up.
There's this director. His name is Steven Soderbergh. He made this movie, right? Apparently, people really like this guy. He made a lot of movies that you would recognize. He did all the Oceans movies. Well, not the original, but the newer Oceans 11, 12,
Yeah,
13.
11, 12, 13. He did
Um,
Aaron Brockovich.
yeah, it's not
That's
that
a
he's a
good one.
bad director. Like, I don't think he's a bad
Really.
director. Just like, what the fuck did he put on the screen for this time? And I think people are kind of glossing him a little bit.
I think he was working with a low budget. He had 2 million to make for this film, and I think most of it went to Lucy Liu.
And it was he
Nah,
should he
I'm
should
not
have
throwing shade at
reconsidered.
Lucy. We love
Steve,
Lucy.
Steven Soderbergh once said that you can tell if a movie's going to be good or bad by the first choices that a director makes in the film. He's talking about like typography or whatever, right? When the very first shot you get in this film is a ghost and it's just like shaking all about, it was like, oh fuck, he fucked this up from the get. Why is a ghost taking footsteps? And how come sometimes it's corporeal, but sometimes it's not? How come sometimes it can drop orange juice, but sometimes it can't? How come sometimes it can stop a date rape and other times it needs to kill someone for it? I'm
These are
sorry,
the
I won't go
questions
off on
you
it
ask
anymore.
yourself while watching this.
And you have a lot of time because nothing happens. Anyway, that's
All
it.
right,
2 out of 10. I'm gonna move
we'll
on.
move on.
Okay, so Andrew, talk to me about some skateboarding stuff.
Oh yeah, okay. So we recently posted on IG a skate video I had that recently got put out by Thrasher, another rough cut. This time it stars, it highlights Blake Norris. So shout out that video. It's a good one to watch. But one I've been really watching heavily, that's becoming my new favorite, is Nike SB's Quick Strike. I mean, all these videos you can watch on YouTube. Just type in Quick Strike or Nike SBs. Um, just some of the best pairing of music and skate I've seen in a long time. Love that. Love that video. And on the topic of just uh, things blending together, music and skating, and I think there's two artists I have predictions will work together. I know this is a weird segue, but going from skating into a little bit of music, but Magdalena Bay and Daft Punk need to come out with a song together. I think that is a pairing that's gonna happen. I hope happens because again, I went back and listened to Touch a couple weeks ago, and then listening to Magdalena Bay recently, and just hearing those two artists together just makes sense. So I'm making a bold prediction that those two artists are going to come together to make an awesome song.
Hell yeah! All right, I hope it happens.
Hell yeah, dude.
I mean, if it happens, then I get to post this on Instagram and tell everyone that you were first, man. So
Exactly, dude. That's what I'm here. I'm here to timestamp it and landmark it. All right.
hell yeah!
And last thing, if we're ready to move on, I just wanted to say uh, a quick thing about Inland Empire. So if you're all done with um,
Oh, I'm good. You're
shout
good.
outs, then
Mhm.
I just want to say after watching the trailer for Inland Empire, like I did for Anora, well, unlike Anora, Inland Empire's trailer did not make any sense to me. But that's no discredit to Inland Empire. But if you're wondering how, or if you're interested in watching this film, I don't think the trailer is going to help you.
Yeah, no, no, no. I don't really think much is going to help you. So let's go ahead and talk about this film. Okay, so and as an actress begins to adopt the persona of her character in a film, her world becomes nightmarish and surreal. Surreal. Thank you.
Surreal.
Um, with the tagline "A Woman in Trouble," we are talking about Inland Empire, David Lynch's 2006, his final full motion picture that he released.
Oh
A
shit!
movie that as
That's
it's been,
that.
yeah, it's been kind of known to be a movie that is daunting. Isn't the word, but it's kind of an experience into itself, and we'll talk more about that. But I wanted to start this off actually with a quote from him again, just because I know
Okay.
a lot of quotes from him. Um, so he said, "I don't think about technique. The ideas dictate everything. You have to be true to that, or you're dead." And I feel like that in and of itself explains some of what you're going to see if you watch Inland Empire. Is that the technique is thrown out the window. He's just going through the ideas and he's letting the ideas play out how he imagines them. Um,
I think,
There, go on.
oh, I was gonna say, and I think he mastered it. You mentioning that this is his last film he directed. I'm sure he probably did work after this,
He
but
did Twin Peaks: The Return after this, so there was like a fair amount of like volume to that, but
this is like his last feature film,
mhm.
full length film, and I think what you had said earlier, like he really just threw everything he could at this project and just left nothing to waste. He's like,
Mhm.
I'm going to send it on this one. This is my final. Maybe he didn't realize, or he did realize that this was going to be his last hurrah for a film. But I can really get that experience, even not knowing that prior, because again, his ability to go from a lighthearted scene into an ominous tone
It's like
is
it's half a
seamless and
second difference.
it is quite impeccable.
It's so hard to talk about this movie without talking about like David Lynch in general, but I'm going to attempt to just talk about the film, right? Because we talked about
Okay.
David Lynch at the beginning, and you
Okay.
can interject however you want. This is like a challenge I'm giving myself because it's
Okay.
hard. It's really hard because I want to be like, it's just this is David Lynch. He does this. So I will say in the beginning, it's like this is a Lynch movie, and it is as Lynchian as it gets, right? So this
Okay.
man is the adjective Lynchian, pretty much named after him. We've dropped
And
this before in different movie reviews, but it's
and for
stamped all
the
over this.
and for the for the unknown listener who doesn't know what Lynchian is
Mm-hmm.
trying to represent, give us or give me your opinion on how you word that. Like, what makes something very David Lynchian from
Yeah.
your
So
perspective?
if I was being really simple to start off with, I would say it is a surreal film style that highly utilizes the soundscape.
Okay, and I
And
felt that the pairing of music in each scene
mm-hmm,
highlighted.
mm-hmm. And like he's got this like ethereal whooshing thing. I've made a joke about this because it is kind of a joke, but like every scene that something's happening, you can hear this like wind going through the background of it, and it's just like to add to this like tension of like there's movement in the scene even if you don't see it. And that's just my guess at it. I don't really know the true reason why he does it. If I wanted to get a little bit more complex, I would say it's like non-linear style of storytelling that has surreal images and increasingly abrasive soundscapes.
Because you
Uh,
say David, very David Lynchian, much like how people will probably say is very cost, uh, Kafka. What's his name? Uh,
Kafka.
Kafka
Yeah.
esque. Exactly. Like
Mm-hmm.
they both have their styling.
And that's the thing. Like, so this movie, it almost defies the rubrics that I have, right? So I was looking at the rubric. I'm like, I can't fucking judge it with this rubric because it's not. He's got such a strong style that's unwilling to bend to the normal story structures that you have in most films that it almost like you have to throw it out when you're going to this movie. You can't be like, all right, I hope that I'm getting into a cool mystery movie that's going to be explained to me at the end, or I'm going to have these plot threads that go from point A to point B. It's not that. This is like you will have some of that, but it's just like the experience of the visuals and the sound and how they hit you and what they make you feel. And they're like, for me, when I wasn't enjoying the movie, is when I noticed I wasn't paying full attention.
That
And,
part.
and when I was paying full attention, I was just like sucked in. And it even if like I was like, I don't know what that means. I was like, but it's fucking captivating. It's like that fucking Anchorman joke, like they don't know what it means, but they love it. Which I don't mean to mix Anchorman and David Lynch, but there we are. Um, so like this is my challenge for this. Like, how do you talk about this movie, right? So you can't really talk about story. I mean, you can try if you want. Um, the story I think made some sort of sense.
Oh, dude, I was on board with the story from not from the beginning. I would be a liar if I could tell you if I knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going on until about 30 minutes into the film. Well, no, probably like 20 minutes because the beginning does not make any GD sense to me. But what I will say is I have a theory that that is Billy and Susan before Billy and Susan. Like
Okay.
this is like the end of someone else's story starting into the new story.
And
Of
we're talking about like the prostitution scene, right? Where she's like, "This looks
yeah,
familiar." Yeah.
because that almost doesn't make much sense in the linear story. Like again, you said non-linear, and maybe this is just like a stretch, but it's like I can't picture why this is the opener. Other than that theory, that's the only theory that helps me make sense of the beginning. And maybe after more watches, I'll be able to decode more or think of other ways. But for now, that's what's keeping me sane because a
Mm-hmm.
movie like this will drive you insane trying to piece things together that you're doing yourself because there's too much room for interpretation
Yeah.
and not enough condensed explanation.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty and there's a frustration in a film like this. So
Mm-hmm.
I think going into this film, you have to have a lot of patience.
You have to
And
be
I think
ready to
that's
have that patience too. Like you have to be
exactly,
prepared for it. You're like, all right, don't
if
expect an
not
answer.
alone for the time length. This is a 3 hour film. People who have probably watched the movie already and are listening to this understand this, but like for those who have not, it is a journey. It's an epic for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to open up quickly on just my first time experience because again, I may have seen Eraserhead, but if I did, I think it was stuck with me. Much like this movie is gonna stick with me, so I don't think I have seen Eraserhead because I feel like this is my first David Lynch experience. It's funny that it's the last movie he directed. It's my first watch of his, but it takes some getting used to because
Mm-hmm.
I was not prepared for the amount of closeness I got to these characters' faces.
I think too. There's you caught his one major motion picture that's done with digital camera, and like you can feel that digital camera. Oh man, can't you? Because it
You
is
see
like
it a lot, and it can be distracting at times.
yeah, yeah. It was a choice, and it wasn't like a weak choice. That was a strong fucking choice that I don't know was for the best choice, but it was a choice he made. It was like, and it wasn't a good digital camera. I want to be like clear, like he did not have like a studio digital camera. He used like a fucking consumer grade camera from 2006 that you could get
You
off the
know
fucking
this.
shelves, and you can feel it. Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know
yeah. He
this. You
talked to.
saw it, or
Mhm.
are you just commenting and being like
So
predictive
I'm going
of
off
what
of
you
what
think?
I've read about it. I didn't
Okay,
see him say it, so there's a chance that this is wrong. But from multiple different sources I've seen that he just used a consumer grade camera to make this film, um, and it feels like that a lot of the time.
and with that, it gives you such a feeling of hope that it just takes a brilliant imagination and your ability to capture that on a camera because
Mm-hmm.
he was able to do this film with that type of filming, like through those. Uh, I'm not trying to say this disrespectfully, but low grade um, film production.
No, and I think you can say it. He knew that it looked like shit later on in his life because he tried to remaster it. He was like, I can't fucking even remaster it because it's so bad. But at
Because
the time, it was a choice.
some of the edits from scene to scene and the way in motion blurred out, it was jarring. Like how good but bad at the same time it was.
It's shocking because like part of
Because
me,
stylistically, it looks
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it almost feels like those like home videos you see from our time. I don't know, like the mid 2000s. You watch these home videos and you're like,
And it came from
it,
the mid 2000s. We forget that this is a 2006 film.
mm-hmm.
And we were talking before we hopped in the pod of some of the movies that came out that year. I'm not sure if you have that list open still,
I
but
do I do have some of it.
some of the movies I have on my screen that came out in 2006 were The Departed, Little Miss Sunshine, and Babel. What do you have?
I got the The Da Vinci Code, The Fountain, The Illusionist, and there's some other good ones. I didn't say any of the good ones, unfortunately.
And you got like people winning for awards like Capote and with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and there's other nominees. Like there's like great films being put out at this time, high grade films, and you have this iconic director coming up with this.
Mm-hmm. And he's got good talent in this, so
he has amazing talent in
mm-hmm.
this film. And um, what I said earlier is not to discredit this film. I'm like doing my best to
No,
give this a bunch of high praises, but like if I'm saying something like absurdly wrong in a way that sounds bad, it's not. I'm trying to give this movie its praises. Uh, I'm just flabbergasted that this movie could come out in theaters alongside these other
right
films that are just like pretty well known and are touted as great films. This one isn't highlighted as much, but I think it kind of deserves to be because it does a lot with like so little.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and by talent I mean he has like a lot of good stars in this, right? So like
For sure,
Laura
Dern,
Dern,
amazing performance by Laura, I think.
and you got Jeremy Irons who plugs in what he does. Like I don't know that his performance was great, but he did good for that character. Justin Theroux, Harry Dean Stanton. So
Quickly,
yes,
I want to go down the list of surprise cast members because Justin Theroux was my first surprise. Again, the trailer did not do me any service by who was going to be in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see William H. Macy is the first thing in the trailer, and he shows up for like 4 seconds.
And he's my number 2. He was like again. It was a surprise because I saw the trailer. I completely forgot that William H. was in the trailer, and he shows up as a cameo because he's on screen as quick and as fast as he leaves because like he's on and off. Like you don't see him for the rest of the film. He does one not a call out, but like a shout out or like
it was like an announcement of some sort.
Yeah, for the Mervyn or Marilyn Levin's talk show, and his line delivery on that was quite amazing. When he says, "Where stars make dreams and dreams make stars," and in that line, I'm sure there's a metaphor somewhere, but I'm not here to dissect it right now. But there's something when he's saying that for sure.
So, real quick with Justin Theroux, you might know him from Beetlejuice. He's was actually in Mulholland Drive, which was a David Lynch film before this. This was his second time working with David Lynch, and if you haven't watched Mulholland Drive yet, you're in for 1, a good time. 2, it's also a real solid mindfuck. Because it has a lot of similarities to this film, but almost in like an inverse. There's again, it's like about actors and actresses, Hollywood stuff going on. I won't explain it. There's too much to explain in Mulholland Drive, but Justin Theroux and David Lynch are a good combo. I think he really likes that kind of like rockabilly look that Justin Theroux has because those fucking sideburns, dude.
Yeah, and I completely not disregard, but forgot that he was in Beetlejuice until you pointed that out. But second, I knew him immediately from seeing American Psycho.
Yeah.
Like, I did not expect to see Justin Theroux as Devin / Billy in this film, and every time I'd see him on screen, I just got reminded of Timothy Bryce in American Psycho, and hearing the lines during the business card scene when he says, "Jesus, that is really super." How did a nitwit like you get so tasteful? Like I love that like delivery. Like I kept hearing that throughout the film, unfortunately, but like I think Devin and Billy I keep saying Devin and Billy because those characters are like mirrored. You don't know where Devin starts and Billy ends sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, Obviously, in the beginning, you know it's Devin, but I'm saying like throughout the film, after the halfway mark, you're kind of questioning where the movie starts and the movie ends.
There's like intermingling of like timelines and different personalities going on, and you can like, for me, it was like every time I thought I was starting to get a hold on it, I would recognize that I did not know, and I'd be like, "Oh fuck, I'm wrong." Okay, I guess I just don't have any of it. I have an interesting thought about this because now we're talking about Devin and Billy. So in the beginning, the neighbor who comes over and gives the kind of like rundown of what's happening, right? And she's talking about the man walking through the door and bringing evil, and the woman walking through the door and getting lost, right? Do we? And then okay, and then they talk about the script of the original film that got made, and then both the main stars died because of what was in the script. Do we take it that maybe Devin and Billy is either one evil or two having a similar experience to Nikki in this film, and we just aren't seeing that
Ooh.
one?
I think he was, because the only reason I believe he was having a similar experience, because I felt like Laura Dern's character, Nikki slash Susan, got out of the spell while he was in it during the intimate scene. And I can't recall if what they were experiencing together was for a scene in High and Blues Tomorrow, or the reality where this is Nikki being Nikki and she's being. I don't think, because it sounded like, oh, man, because I go back and forth, because Nikki sounds like she would not be disloyal to her husband, but later she tells herself that she's a whore, and
I
then she says she would
Yeah.
fuck at the bar just for a fuck sometimes, and I don't know, honestly,
Well,
if he was caught under the spell.
it's I think it's really hard to say because for one, like that house that they were filming in, I actually I don't want to say that they were filming in the house that they were having the affair in was the same house that Nikki lived in when I'm just gonna say when she seemed like she was broken, poor, and pregnant. Right. So and that house was the same house that was on the set, but only in one timeline and not the other. So was it part of the film or was it part of real life is a little bit confusing for me because in her reality, she lived in that fucking nice ass mansion, right? And
That's not her actual reality.
I don't know, man.
I thought
This
she was a.
that I think that's the Nikki reality because that's the first one we see when she talks to the neighbor. So I assume the
Yeah,
nice mansion is her. But then the second house where she lives and they
he's
are
getting
in
beat
the
up
abusive
and having
situation.
a very abusive situation.
Yeah, and that's the house where she's having the affair with Devin because
Okay.
and we know that because we see the bed as she's walking through the hallway that the this isn't his name, it's just what I have written down, the light bulb man. Crimp sees her. Because Crimp is standing in the hallway and he sees her.
Yeah, that was creepy.
It was. And it's in that house. So what does that house mean, right? Is that house like the portal between things? Is it the connection? I don't really know. But that would be, I think, the answer lies somewhere in how is that house connected to the timeline? And if they're both there, maybe they are both experiencing the same thing and they both showed up at the same house for fuck knows what reason.
And before we move on from this, quickly, this is the intimate scene where the blue light connected me to the beginning, because the blue light, the intimate scene has a very unique blue light. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's, I think David Lynch's use of lighting is uh, very intentional,
Yeah. Okay.
and the blue light that they're being intimate is very similar to the blue light you see in the beginning of the film, where you see the prostitute and that random dude with their face blurred out. Like it, I could be wrong, and I could be looking into it, but like it seemed like those two blue lights were similar, and that's why I got the theory that it's another Billy and Susan because, like Jeremy Irons' character said, Kingsley, I think is the director's name.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to make this film numerous times. This is not a remake, even though Devin doesn't do remakes. This isn't a remake. It's just a film that's never been completed because 47, the Polish curse.
Yeah, yeah, and um, so I'll talk about this. So like, I've got a couple of different theories on this movie, and they're probably kind of counteractive of each other. But since you bring up 47, I'll talk about it. So I think, for my expectation, like I'm taking a lot from what the neighbor said in the beginning, right, where she talks about how the woman walks through the door and she becomes half of a person and she gets lost, right? So for me, the question was like, who's the other half of the person? And I think the lady who we see watching the television and who's in Poland in whatever year it was, and who is freed at the end, I think she's the other
Weird at the
half.
end, the lady with the one leg. Is
No,
this
no, no. I don't know how she plays into the one lately. No, the one who had like the her eyebrows were really thin and she definitely looked Polish. Um, and she was around during the scenes. She was the one who was crying whenever she was watching the TV. And when it would zoom in on the TV, she was the one sitting in the room crying. They just call
okay?
her Lost Girl in the credits, so I don't
Is
have a
she the
name
one
for her.
watching the bunnies?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she is the audience for the bunnies.
She's the audience for the bunnies, and I also think that she's the other half. She's the other half for Nikki, like the actual real other half. So I think Lost Girl is the original Polish actor who was killed, quote unquote, during the original filming of the movie, and they end up connecting and freeing each other.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you, was what's her face, Susan Nikki, a sacrifice at the end?
It kind of felt that way because I could definitely see that being it too. It was like she died, but she finished this movie, which releases the first lady out of this weird purgatory that she's in.
That part.
Um,
Yeah.
and like we'll never know, but that's like one of the theories where I'm like, okay, if I'm trying to make this make sense, I can follow this here. I don't know how like Crimp and the bunnies fit into this. That doesn't. I'm not a PhD in this movie,
They're
unfortunately,
just
but like,
pawns. They're just here to move the storyline.
hmm but I mean, and Crimp gets the coolest scene of all of them with the bleeding mouth face. Uh, it's fucking that was cool.
Which scene was that?
And when after he gets shot by Nikki in the hallway, and like
Dude,
at
I
first he goes to her
hated that
face.
scene. I
The
hated it, but loved it, but hated it because it scared the fuck out of me, dude.
the bleeding mouth face, like, okay, I had seen stills of this image before I had, because I post on Instagram and I have to look up images, right? And that's like the first image that comes up if you look up stills for this, which, spoilers sucks, but I didn't expect it to look so much creepier in motion than it looked on a picture. Because when the blood is just slowly coming out of its mouth and it's moving up and down, I was like, that's fucked. That's a fucked up scene right there.
And this is the end, but before I got to this point, I was already telling myself, "Oh hell no!" And there were so many "oh hell no's" in this movie. It is hard to count because
Mm-hmm.
once you're on this roller coaster, strap the fuck in because it gets fucking weird. An hour in, and I can see why the length of this film makes sense. He's not just putting a bunch of shit together to for nothing. Like I think he's building up,
Mm-hmm.
and the movie really just kicks off at the hour mark. Like things just go from there. A lot of the first hour is just setting up and like creating this connection with the characters.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. It's like pulling you in, so that way when it unravels, you're unraveling with it almost. Because I agree 100%. It was like, because as I'm watching this movie, I'm like thinking from an outside perspective. I'm like watching. I'm like, I can tell that what I'm seeing here. Like if I was watching a vignette of this, I would be like, what the fuck is this? Why am I watching it? But they had already pulled me in. He'd already sucked me in. And by the time they're like dancing to the locomotion in the room, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this is about. I was just sitting there like, what the fuck? This is why, but in a good way. Um, I don't know how to describe it other ways. Like I was weirded out, but it was a positive experience because
Very
the weirding
unsettling.
out was like I am getting now just as lost as she must feel going through all this shit.
That's what I was doing a lot of the time uh, with these scenes and these characters. One especially during the interrogation, where is that Devin's wife?
Uh, the I
This the hypnotized woman who's being interrogated in that room with that detective.
and she's the hypno. Are you mean the one who was battered?
She may have been battered. She's confessing to this detective that like she's gonna kill somebody,
And
and
is this the like really uninterested looking detective who's just like,
he was very uninterested. But his face was so close to the gosh darn camera, it had you believe that you were seeing this through the eyes of this
mm-hmm.
hypnotically crazed woman who got literally a screwdriver jabbed into her stomach, and her trying to rip that out of her stomach was so unnerving. I cringed, but
Yeah.
like without that weird. It was just so gut curdling and just like like I don't do well when I see and hear something punctured into somebody try to come out. It sounds awful.
I mean, that's pretty fair, I think. The, I mean, you see, there's so many threads you can just like follow in this movie because of who the lady who stabbed her was Devin's wife, right?
I would
So
I thought like because there's a moment where um Laura Dern's character Nikki or Susan, I can't again, I don't know who is the one who's coming into the room when um they're all against her at this point. Like I think the wife is yelling at Nikki,
is
and
this the
then
scene with the butler in it?
I think so.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Should I call the police?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's when I first like connected the dots because I didn't know who that crazy lady was at first because I didn't really explain that till later that I think that's the wife.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now, and I agree with you. I also that scene I thought was really masterful when she comes in there and she's like confessing everything to him and she's saying all this stuff. Because
About her loving him
one thing I really thought I was like, is this the movie they're shooting?
so
And
many times.
it was the perfect moment because it was like at that moment I'm right there with Laura. I'm like, is this the movie they're shooting or is this real life? And that's that perfect feeling of like she's lost in the character. I'm lost in her character too. I'm like, because it takes on two completely different meanings depending. On one hand, she acted fantastically, and on the other hand, oops, she just like fucked up both their lives. And if it was part of the movie, then her getting stabbed with the screwdriver by that same lady makes a lot of sense, right? But if it wasn't part of the movie, her getting stabbed by that lady with the screwdriver makes a lot of sense, right?
Dude, getting stabbed at what I imagine is Skid Row must
I
suck.
I love that scene. That scene was so like out of nowhere, and Terry Crews popping up on the fucking ground,
Dude,
man.
Terry
Like,
Crews, he's like the last surprise fucking character. He's the last person I thought was in this fucking film.
when
I
he
was
says,
looking, is that fucking Terry Crews? What
yeah,
the fuck?
when he says, "Shit, baby, why you say that shit?" I was cracking up. I was just like, "Why did she say that? Shit was gross."
Such a surprise cast on Terry Crews showing up, and I just kept looking like, cause he's covered. Like they're having a whole ass conversation about a Pomona bus.
Mm-hmm.
Street Person 1 and Street Person 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Terry Crews is just in the back listening to this. Meanwhile, Laura Dern's character just got stabbed and is laying next to them. while this conversation is happening.
Just bleeding out right next to him while this lady's like, you can't catch the bus to Pomona because it doesn't exist. And she's like, it does exist. And that's the whole conversation. And then there's some about vaginal walls breaking down. And you're just like, what the fuck?
You think the conversation is going to last a minute or two. This conversation, probably goes on for like 3 or 4 minutes.
What I actually loved about this conversation is that it was these two dudes, these two people just talking at each other. You know what I mean? Like they weren't listening, they weren't paying attention. They were talking at each other about different things. And like since I've worked in this like field, this happens so much more than you think, and it's so much more realistic than like a full conversation happening. It's where they're just talking, and they see someone's looking at them, and they're like, "It's you. You're conversing with me. It doesn't matter what you say. You're conversing with me."
You're literally saying a completely different thing than what I'm saying, but we're just going at it, and whatever I think you're saying is going along with what I'm saying. It's like completely not.
You said 3 words about Pomona bus. We're in it. Whatever else you say, I don't care. We're Pomona bus at 9 p.m., right? It's after midnight or something.
Dude, I shit you not. I think this is my favorite moment in the entire film. This whole scene. Because it is such... would you consider this a climax? Probably not. But it's damn near close to the climax. And so you're just like, what is going on right now? Because, I'll get to, I think, what the climax is. But before I get to that, I want to shout out my favorite line. And it's by street person number 1, Helena Chase.
Okay.
And this is during Laura Dern's character. I'm not going to even say who she was because I don't know. You can... And you know what? I think I know. Because later when I say my climax, it'll make sense. Because I think Laura Dern right now is Susan. When she's laying on the ground, bleeding out, she pops up. She has a Team America style blood shoot from her mouth. She's just vomiting blood.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Just straight.
Right in front of everyone.
Team America style. Vomiting blood. Goes back to Helena Chase. And all Helena Chase could say, it's okay. You dying is all.
Yeah.
Oh, nonchalant.
I did write that down. That's like one of my last lines. Is okay, you dying is all. Like it was, and you know what the thing is like it sounds so silly, but like in that moment, it actually felt like it was probably a pretty comforting thing to hear. Because
what else can you say,
right? And like after all that Laura Dern's character has been through in this film at this point, she's probably like, "Oh fuck yeah, dude, let's go." I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Just quickly while we're on Helena Chase. I was hearing her voice well before I watched this movie, and only because of this album, dude.
Oh, okay, Burial. Okay, sick.
Burial opens up this album, Untrue, with a sample of Helena Chase saying, "I show you light now. It burns bright forever," and she's just like,
with the lighter in front of her fucking face, right? Like, hell
dude,
yeah.
Sick. I was like, when I heard that on screen, I'm like, what the fuck do I know that from? Like, I channeled such deep memories from listening to this album. I shit you not, this album got me through 2013, 2014, man. Like, I was listening to shit out of this album, and every time I would open up the first song and hear Helena Chase's voice unknowingly. So
I mean, hell yeah, that's like that's a behemoth of an album too. I love that whole little like scene. It was just like such a, because again, it was just like this almost genre switch of a scene out of nowhere. You're like in this middle of this weird mystery, and then you get into this part that's almost it sticks with like this surreal feeling, but it's almost more straight and funny than the rest of the movie. And it's at the one time where you're like, she's fucking dying. We should be, but then you're seeing these people talking. You're like, it's gonna be all right. And I don't know why, but I think it is.
And tell me what you think about this. This is my theory of the climax. the fucking rug pull again. Of them panning out and seeing
It was so good.
fucking camera again. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what the fuck? Am I still in High and Blue tomorrow?
It was so fucking mean, that camera pull, but it was so well done because you're like, oh, dude, it happened. She died. And then the camera pulls out and you're like, did it happen?
Is this still the movie? Or am I in Inland Empire? I don't know where Inland Empire and High and Blue tomorrow stop and start. And this is why I'm saying this whole movie played out like a movie within a movie within a movie. Nick, if I could just quickly go get on my podium and explain the layers by which I mean.
I got you. Throw your thing out there, man.
Layer one, this is David Lynch directing the film, Inland Empire. But then you have layer two of David Lynch directing Jeremy Irons, who's directing High and Blue tomorrow. But there's another layer of who is filming the bunnies. Because that's a sitcom. You hear laugh tracking. So who's directing that? So how deep does this fucking movie go with the amount of directors directing whatever's happening on screen?
That's a good question. That's a good question because it could go theoretically even deeper. Because then there's still someone.
But they're connected because they make a phone call to the bunnies. Laura Dern, I think, talks to the bunnies at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I think she almost enters the room. I'm not sure she ever does because the door opens with the bunnies, but no one ever enters the door.
She enters the room, but the bunnies aren't in there any longer. And for like what it's worth, the beginning scene with the first scene with the bunnies, where he like exits the door and then it does the weird like wipeout almost screen transition, makes it feel like the bunnies can't actually enter or exit whatever dimension they're in. To me, like they're kind of stuck in this spot, and when they leave, it's just like whoosh, and they go back, which is not a technical term, but you know.
That's all I have to say about that one. It is a weird outlook on that for sure. I will say the bunnies fucking creeped me out. I was heavily creeped out when the bunnies were no longer far away and you saw the real life bunny in the bunny suit,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I was terrified for no reason because I don't think anything happened, but there was so much mystery. Then that's what got me kind of on edge, was the
Cool.
mystery of what's going to happen and
Cool little
why
side
I'm
note
seeing these
about these
bunnies.
bunnies. Naomi Watts voiced the female bunny that you hear the most, Susie.
Okay,
She also was in Twin Peaks: The Return and Mulholland Drive, so she got to be kind of like a staple with David Lynch near the end.
sweet, that's awesome.
Um, I want to quote Laura Dern's character because I think it applies to a lot of what we just said here, and she said it out loud herself. And when she said it out loud, I was like, "You got it. We're on the same page, me and you, Laura." She says, "I don't know what happened first, and it's kind of laid a mind fuck on me." And she says that when she's talking to the detective, and I was like, "Me too."
Now, is this a detective that we see who does not give a shit about what
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
talking
This is the one where I
about?
was
She
talking.
climbed up the stairs and she's winded and she needs to catch her breath.
Yeah, yep.
She got her, dude, for the longest time, her face was messed up and I had no idea why. It explains later from what she's living this past, reality, present, I don't know, but she has just a fucked up face.
Yeah, that reality is the one that I have the most questions about, right? Because it's like, so she's in this domestic violence reality, and that's also the same house that she lives in, that she has sex with Devin in, that they end up getting caught. And is that the same house where the dude gets the ketchup all over his shirt?
Dude, that's a reality that I think we visit the least and have almost no explanation why they entered that world. And if they did, I forgot from just this long ass movie.
I mean,
But
I couldn't figure it out. There was like Polish thugs that came through, or just dudes, and they were all
There was
just
just a
having
bunch of
like,
people on screen out of nowhere after he spilled ketchup on his shirt,
mm-hmm.
or it may have been like before or after, because they visited that reality like twice or three times in the movie. I can't recall.
I think it visited a couple times where it was just like a shot of Laura Dern in the field talking for a second, and then it like moved out.
Is that where she finds the screwdriver for the first time in that reality? She picks up a screwdriver and like walks away.
If I wonder, because if so, isn't that the same reality where she saw Crimp the first time when he had the light bulb in his mouth? It had to be that reality, because that's the only reality we're seeing the outside of the house during, right? Because it's either that one or when she was beat up, and I don't know if those were the same exact reality. They must have been, I suppose.
And at what point does she exit that reality and enter that reality? Because she sees the detective that she's talking to up on the stairwell on the screen in a movie theater, an empty movie theater. But at the same time, she sees him in real life. So, like, oh man,
Yeah.
dude, it's hard to understand where one reality ends and one reality stops once you're
Yeah.
in this film.
Listener, if you were hoping that we were going to parse this all out for you and get it exactly right, there was never a chance. The actors have said they don't understand this movie. David Lynch will never explain the movie, so we're just working with what we got here.
And I mean, this man really took it to the grave.
He really did, really did. He stuck by. They asked him if he would elaborate. He said no, and he meant it. He never got back to it. And for his credit, I think it makes the movie a lot more interesting because I can't just look up and see what it was about. Instead, I just have to sit here and think about it. I just as like a side note, right? Because this is the film in regards to like a part of my life is that during I watched in two separate filmings, right? So the first hour and a half and then the second hour and a half. And after the first hour and a half, I couldn't fall asleep that night. I had my child sitting next to me who's grinding his teeth, unfortunately. Don't love that, but it happens. Like, so the auditory noise mixed with me sitting here thinking about the movie got in my head so much that I was having like this like hour long just thinking about this movie in the middle of the night. Couldn't fall asleep. The only other media that had like the same impact on me, whereas like my brain was so full of the media itself that I was having an issue, was this game Disco Elysium, which I suggest everyone check out. It's got the same sort of like capability of just like planting ideas in your mind that you get to think about as opposed to telling you what to think about them. That's a side note. I was just thinking about it.
Dude, you are not alone in that because this movie hasn't yet given me nightmares, but I'm sure this is such a nightmare-inducing film. I also had a hard time sleeping the night I watched this because one, I thought by watching this late enough, it would help me fall asleep and I would just be able to go to bed. Like, no, I couldn't. And also, it sucked, not sucked, but like it was difficult to watch this at night. I was terrified.
Yeah, yeah.
By myself watching this.
I mean, the atmosphere is so thick and heavy, and I think that's just the soundscape that he uses. Like the soundscape will not let you go. And this has like been a thing of Lynch movies, and I said I wouldn't do this. I'm doing it. It has been a thing of Lynch movies that has been so strong the whole way through is that his soundscapes grab you. So that even if you have like a scene where almost nothing's going on, you're still in it because the sound won't let you go. So if you watch this film, make sure you can hear it. It is very important to the movie to be able to hear this movie.
um, and with that, I wanted to quickly share a story if I can.
Go.
So, again, I watched this just last night, and I was excited to tell the next person I saw to go watch this film because um, this is such a mindfuck, and I wasn't expecting to be scared watching this film. And when I was talking to my friends at work, explaining to them jump scares seems silly, but it's hard to see jump scares in this film and jump scares in today's day and age because jump scares today and day and age have nothing on this movie's jump scares, because when I tell you that there was a moment that caught me so off guard, I was fucking shocked. I was reaching
Mm-hmm.
for a drink from my cup, and at that exact moment, just completely out of nowhere, there was a scream comboed with the screen strobing with black and white.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I
dude,
understand.
I'm like, am I in a fucking haunted house? Like, I literally almost spilled my drink.
And was this the scene right after they were dancing, right? Like, so you had like this joyous like feeling of like, hey, happiness, and then it was like, fuck you.
It's early on. It's literally the first time you hear such a audible shift in what you're seeing on screen. Like, it happens immediately, and you're not prepared for it. Like, a lot of movies today set you up to get
Yeah.
scared because
Hmm.
they just draw out a scene and it's quiet, and you're like, oh, I'm about to get scared. They're
Yeah.
gonna do like this loud noise. This one caught me off guard completely. My heartbeat and the heartbeat on screen mirrored each other seamlessly. Like, that whole experience was such a sensory overload. And um, if I can recall the scene, I'll try to. But I think there are multiple times that this movie does that. So um, this movie plays so well as a horror. I know it's marketed as like a thriller suspense, but you can put this in alongside with any of today's horror films, and it will go blow for blow, hit for hit. Like, the amount of scares you get out of this. Because when I was saying earlier, like, how I got so many all hell no's like throughout the film, like, I am not joking. Like, especially when there was a clown. I don't get scared of clowns easily, but there was something about this clown that was so ominous and terrifying to see on screen, because I already knew, like, he's preparing me for something, but like, even I was still unprepared for the amount of preparing David was trying to do on screen.
One scene that worked for me in this way in particular was actually when Laura Dern, and this is a scene that I don't think should have worked as well as it did, but when she was doing, I don't know what else to call it except for her troll walk up that like trail, and she's just like walking all stiff, and then she just goes, her face contorts in such a way that it looks like pure terror as she comes up to the screen, and you know something's gonna happen the whole time, but then her ability to contort her face this way, mixed with the setting and the build up to the scene, was just wonderful. I think what makes this movie feel like a strong horror is just how nightmarish it feels. Have you ever had those nightmares where you just like lose your ability to logic or reason? I've had these nightmares where I'm just like talking to someone and they'll be telling
They're
me their
very far and
numbers.
few, but
Hmm.
I've woken up from something that I wanted to wake up from. Like,
Yeah,
so I know what a nightmare feels like.
yeah. I've had these nightmares where like people will be telling me numbers and I can't like put them together anymore. You know, and this movie feels like that, where you feel like you understand what is happening, but at the same time, none of it makes sense. You're there with it, and yet you can't comprehend it. And I can't think of another movie that captures the nightmare feeling as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't know how to paint a nightmare before, I definitely have some idea what to paint it now,
Mm-hmm.
because this movie has some of the most jarring facial features from so many characters. Laura Dern is such a top tier facial expression actress. Like, she was emoting so much on screen without having to say a word. Because you'll have people talking to her and off camera, and all you see is Laura's reaction to what they're saying in real time. Like, such a close up of how she's processing certain dialogue from certain characters, and just, boy, like, I did not know could act that well. Like I know she could act well. I'm not saying that. I just didn't know she could act like that. Like that is such a new way of acting for me that I haven't seen done by another person, and I
It
can't even recall a time.
it had to be so difficult too, because how do you explain your motivations in this movie if you're David Lynch, right? To an actress, you're like, what are your motivations? You don't know who you are, you don't know where you are, but you're feeling these things. I guess the good news is that she had worked with David Lynch before, and like she agreed to do this film just because, as I've posted on Instagram, David Lynch just called her and said, "Hey, do you want to do some film experiments?" And she's like, "Yeah, all right." And then they ended up shooting this movie over 3 years. So it took a long
In 3
time to
years to
make this
do it?
film. Yeah, it took 3 years,
Ooh,
and I don't think that this was like the sole project they were working on at any point. Like maybe David Lynch was, but I'm sure Laura Dern was doing something else. But I think she was just given like free reign to do what she felt was right, and I think what you see is like someone who has that ability given to them, where it's
awesome.
like you got
Yeah,
this feeling, you
there's
got this
so much
idea.
trust in your actors and actresses. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could tell. Well, I can't tell, but like I get the feeling that there was such a level of trust that like do what you feel comes natural to this character at this point. Because in
Mm-hmm.
3 years, that's a lot of time to be stuck on one character
Yeah,
as an
yeah.
actress. Because like I'm sure actors and actresses want to move on from the role. Like they study the role. One example was Timothy Chalamet. He's really diving deep into his Bob Dylan, and he's being very immersive. And I think I remember him saying like, "This is literally I'm going in. Like I'm gonna play this character the best as I can." I haven't seen the movie yet, but like for the next 8 months, I this is my chance to be this, and then I get to move on. Like I could do something else,
Mm-hmm.
but right now, like this is what I'm involved in. And if Laura Dern is doing somewhat something similar with that mindset, 3 years, I could
Rough.
go. That can make a person go mad sometimes. Like
Yeah,
if
and
they're,
I think that she was doing other films in between. It's like, uh,
mm,
so I don't think it was just simply
sure,
this. She
sure,
did a movie called "We Don't Live Here Anymore," a happy
okay,
endings, the prize winner of Defiance. She did King of the
okay,
Hill,
nice.
for fun.
So she wasn't just invested in this, but I mean, come on, 3 years?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
right.
impressive
Um,
to be dedicated to one project.
Especially one project that's like so far out there that it has to be hard to jump back in and out of it. Um, can you imagine having like the filmography she does, and then just having this director that she's worked with so many times just show up with like a DSLR camera and just be like, "Here you go, let me get it right in your
You
face."
can
Yeah.
imagine that's how close they are.
Mhm.
Because, like, sure, there's the zoom in process, but then, like,
It wasn't that
when
good.
it wasn't like it's so clear, you get that feeling of like um unsettling of just like someone being that close to your face. Like
I
you don't
felt
want that.
Yeah, I felt so bad for the neighbor, the beginning neighbor, the Polish one who tells
Oh
the
yeah,
Polish story, because she was in Twin Peaks too, and they did similar stuff. But like David was in her face. He's like as
yeah.
close to her as possible, just like doing every angle. It's like up angle, down angle, side angle, this angle, that angle. He's probably just walking around her constantly. She's telling this story about the man walking through the door. And speaking of which, she set the scene for this film so well in the beginning. That first scene where the neighbor shows up and she tells this weird story that like kind of she seems like she's being nice, but then when you get to the end, you're like, are you though? Because you're kind of like you're being a little strange here.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, if this was tomorrow, you'd be sitting over there. And
And
then,
then they point, and then like that's when she finds out that she got the role. Like later, like it just snaps over to another scene with her
mm-hmm,
girls, and the butler walks in with like the phone and saying like, "Hey, your agent's on the phone." Da 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 da. And then they show her get the part, and then we pan over to Hollywood.
right, so cool, so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
this felt like a surreal Hollywood experience. How a director could imagine directing a film within a film within a film.
I had a thought about this. Right, there's two thoughts, and one of them is going to be a wild theory that I'm going to throw out here. Okay, so I'm not going to start with that one. I'm going to start with the other thought. The first thought I have is David Lynch at this point had like 30 years of experience in Hollywood. maybe more, but I think it was like 30 years of experience. And he had probably seen it all, and he had probably gotten a little bit bored. So he's like, okay, well, let's take my experience that I've had and let's turn it on its head and make it something different, right? Like, what is the underlying motivation here, or the dream or the nightmare that can come of this? Like Mulholland Drive almost feels like the dream, which you haven't seen, so I won't go into it too much. But then this one feels like the full-on nightmare, which would be an
Do
interesting
you
idea.
think these could work off each other, like as like not a side project, but like one after the other? Like, or these work like on their own as their own films? Obviously they do, but I'm just saying, like, is there any pairing you think, or any connection?
I don't think there's any connection like in the story, mind you, but there is a connection in the idea. So Mulholland Drive is also a place in LA, just like Inland Empire is a place in LA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they are both about actresses who are trying to get big and hit it big, and they just kind of tell different versions of the story. So very similar themes, very similar ideas. Now, if you haven't seen Mulholland Drive, and I know by the conversation you haven't, you definitely should watch it. That also a wild movie, for
On the
very
list
different
already.
reasons.
Yeah, on
And
the list.
side note, and letting people in behind the curtain, if you want to watch a David Lynch movie, I'll watch him again. You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to ask. Just throw it out there. I'll say yes. There's a few that I haven't seen in a long time, but anyway,
And
they,
but
they would work well
this
as a
is
good
one you
pairing.
haven't seen. This is one you haven't seen.
This is the only one I hadn't seen, so that's why I kind of saved it for this. And there's no better time to watch it than now. Now that it's like his final feature film, and we know it's his final feature film. You know,
It's like a final send off.
exactly. This is one that I had on Blu-ray, but again, the 3 hour time frame. Like I didn't buy it for this. I already had it. The 3 hour time frame had stopped me from watching it all these times. And I was like, all right, okay, let's do this thing. Let's get into it. I'd actually, the shocking thing is that I had heard that this was his least approachable film, and that it made no damn sense, and that I shouldn't be that excited because it's too surreal to get into. And spoiler alert for the end of this podcast, I strongly disagree after watching it. But with that said, I'm gonna go into this crazy theory I had about this.
Okay, shoot.
So we talk about the layers upon layers upon layers, right? And all these crazy Hollywood story, and how it's about how many directors, how many different things. I had this idea that the lady who's watching the TV in the beginning is the only one who we're actually seeing the narrative through. And what we're actually getting from this movie is we're getting the representation of all of the different versions of Laura Dern's character that are on the screen at one time. And it's like you're watching that this character life, and the way that the timelines are linked, and the way that the thought processes are linked. If the characters you saw on the TV and the people you saw on the TV had consciousness and were alive all at the same time. And that's a weird thought process to follow. I get it. So it's like if every I think about like those old tales, and I don't know what tribe they came from, and like I would be sure I was lied to if this was the truth, but like you'd always heard that there were tribes in Africa that believed that if you took a photo of them, you captured part of the soul, right? And so my thought here was that like this is showing that the actress's soul and the things that she's been shot in, and every time they're showing up on TV and shown again to people, exist, and they coexist with each other even if they're happening all at the same time.
Yeah.
And now you can ask like, where did you come up with that? And I don't know, man. I was just watching the movie and this shit popped in my head. So, but I was like, if I wanted to like find like a solid explanation for it, I was like, what if straight up the lost girl at the beginning is the only one whose reality is true, and the rest is what we're seeing is just what she's watching on the TV, because that's how it kind of leads you into the rabbit part, is that she's watching the TV and then the rabbits come on, and then after that the rabbits exit the room, it does the washout, and then she's on a different channel, she's on a different show, and every time we see this shot it's like she's flipping channels, and it constantly goes back to this lady, and the only way that she gets out of this room and stops watching the TV is when the film ends.
She went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there's no theory that you can prove or disprove, so as far as I'm aware that's 100% right. But I had to share it because like I thought it like wormed its way into my head, and I was like, I can't not say this out somewhere. And if I just say it to my coworkers, they're gonna look at me like I'm crazy because they've never seen this movie.
Yeah, I think far and few have seen this movie
Mm-hmm.
because I'm sure the next few people I talk to are probably gonna say they've never seen this.
Yeah, yeah. Even huge David Lynch fans. Like I love David Lynch. I've loved David Lynch. I slept on this movie pretty hard. You know, so it's definitely not one that did well in the box office. I think it sank his distribution company because he was set up to be his own distributor. He produced this movie, and then I think it just sank it from there.
Damn, because yeah, the budget on this
Um,
was 2.9 to 3 million, and he made 4.4 million at the box office. So yeah, did not uh, hit the box office hot. Like nobody was watching this. No, yeah, I don't know.
right, and for as well as like, we can talk up David Lynch and all this right now, um, I don't think that he was like the rich actor director that you would associate Hollywood with. Like his stuff was never super mainstream. Um, like the closest he had to a mainstream hit was probably Elephant Man, which I think was
Really, Elephant Man?
nominated.
Yeah, I know because that's the one with Anthony Hopkins, huh?
Yeah, and I think that was the only one that was nominated for either Best Director or Best Picture. I can't remember. I don't believe any of the other ones were. Like Mulholland Drive was pretty well known, but I don't think it was popular. And then you have Wild at Heart, which was awesome, not that popular. Blue Velvet, I guess, could have been one, but I still think Elephant Man was more well known. And then Twin Peaks, but I don't think Twin Peaks alone would have made enough money for him to be rich. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he was really um, loved by his cult following. Like
Mm-hmm.
he got a lot of support from the people who really loved his work, and I think I'm close to being a next follower. I am fully in on this David Lynch train. Like I want to see more.
It's just hard, like not to be in my opinion, anyways, because there's just I can't point at anything else that reminds me of David Lynch in general. Like I can say things are Lynchian. Like I can look at the movie that we reviewed, Cure, right, and say like they took a lot of Lynchian elements from this with the soundscape, but that didn't feel like a Lynch movie.
And I was gonna say, Session Nine gives me these like Lynchian vibes with the way he's directing that film. Like that, I mean, that's a stretch, but like, what's it called? It just felt very much like Brad Anderson was heavily influenced by David Lynch.
Mm-hmm. And you know the case is, I think a lot of the people who were like creators were heavily influenced by David Lynch because he had a Scooby Doo episode made about Twin Peaks. You know, I think once you have a Scooby Doo episode that's dedicated to you, you kind of broke through. I also look at stuff like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like that's a TV show for kids, right?
He
And
did
Courage,
stuff.
what was that?
He did stuff for Courage.
He didn't, but I think Courage the Cowardly Dog got a
Ooh.
lot from him. And just like the surrealism and the weirdness, because I remember the episode where they have like the bad guy is just a floating actual picture of a person, you know? And it's like texture in the video that makes it scary because it's a cartoon and it's a floating real head. And that's why it's scary because it's a real head. And it's just so out of place. And so out of place feels like a good way to describe a lot of Lynch stuff. It just all of it feels so out of place, and yet he pieces it together in a way that you're like in it.
And the last thing I have to say, really, about in an Empire is going off what you just said. There is so much happening all at once, but he knows how to, at least in this film, maintains focus, in my opinion, throughout. Like I was never too lost or too uninterested of what was going on to pull me away from what was happening on screen. Like I was always invested for the most part of what was going on screen, and it takes a lot to do that sometimes because some movies just are so boring, but this one was not. I was thoroughly entertained from like almost start to finish. I think there was one lull moment, and I can't think of it right now. So that goes to show you that there's not many, in my opinion.
The the amount of movies I see that are like absurd and surreal that just completely lose the plot. So many of them. They're a good 80% of these movies that go shoot out to be absurd and surreal lose the plot. They lose interest. You're watching it for like 20 minutes. You're like, man, there was a good thing here, and you lost me. It's gone.
And I think it's very driven by characters.
It has to be something like that because this is a 3 hour movie. If there was a movie that was ready to lose you, it's a 3 hour movie. And it doesn't. It like sucked you in so much. So you're just like, oh shit. Like 2 hours went by the first time I watched it, and it felt like in like 45 minutes. And in an absurd, surreal movie, I don't know how you do that. I watched it and I still couldn't explain how to do it. And especially like one like frankly, the image quality is garbage. It's just so bad. And it almost doesn't matter. It almost aids the film.
Yeah,
Like you're watching and you're like, it doesn't feel like something I really should be watching in some parts. You're like, this looks like a home film from someone that I really don't want to see their house.
yeah.
But here we are. Um, okay, I do have to talk about there, just to give credit. There's one shot that I loved so much, and it was the shot when they are going through the scene, right? Or going through the set after Devin is chasing the mystery person through the set.
I'm literally watching that. I think I'm watching the scene that you're talking about right now. It
And
sounds scary.
okay, so then you might see this then. So he's chasing the person through the set, but then it goes to Laura Dern, and she's inside of the house,
The
right?
house.
And
Yes.
she's looking out the window.
Yes.
And at first, it's like all normal, but then it switches to the studio, and there's the man in green looking through the window, and that's her husband. And that was just so well done. It was so creepy, such a good shot. And I can't believe that with this DSLR, this man captured this shot and got such a good composition. It's bananas.
So much personality bleeds through David Lynch's camera work. It's
Mm-hmm.
quite like second to none, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has a way that makes you feel like you're in the room.
100%. It's like it's a skill and a method that I don't think that I could describe to you, and I think that's why no one else can hit it. It's just like I think the idea that he went with, that everything should just be the idea that he has and not worrying about how it should be done, is really what it is, and that means you can't replicate it because it's just straight from his brain and not written down anywhere. And like with a movie like this where I watch it and I'm like, I can't, like, can you compare Inland Empire to another movie?
Right now, I cannot.
Like, if I remove any Lynch movies and like any Lynch connections, because there are some connections and a lot of it like feels he's done some of those things before, right? So if you've seen these movies, some of them aren't a shock. But if I remove the Lynch movies from this, and I think what other movie is like this, I don't have like even one name off the top of my head that I could give you, which is wild, you know. And so I'm gonna look at these notes real quick just to see if I have any other parts that I want to pop up.
Yeah, as you do that, I'm just gonna say like set design, costume design, just amazing. Like I believed everywhere they were, everything felt in place. No one felt out of character. No one felt like they didn't belong in this movie. And there's just so much happening on screen that you are just left asking yourself how, like, how did he manage to create this world?
Mm-hmm.
So seemed like it seems very difficult, but at the same time it looked easy for him. Like nothing in this movie felt forced. The only thing I will say that I don't think we talked about, but I'm not sure how I really talked about it, was just the amount of women that I feel are Susans. Was that what they were? Were they ghosts? When
All right, are you talking about the like
the
the
locomotive dance number that they have that group of women and like because it sounded like they were trying to find their Billies.
That's an interesting theory because that's not what I had thought. I actually thought that there was like a third version of Nikki Sue, and the third version was a prostitute, and these were the ladies who were prostitutes with her.
Yeah, because she does end up on the streets with a bunch of prostitutes on Skid Row.
But then they seem shocked when she says that she's a prostitute, right? And so I don't know.
Yeah,
that
because they though that set of girls are is that set of girls the same girls that are in the room with her when they're going off and um talking about there's a moment where this lady just like pulls up her shirt and she's just like trying to like say how this is gonna be what gets me a Billy or gets me a man or something.
mm-hmm.
And they're just commenting on this woman's breast, which was such an odd scene to include, but it didn't feel like out of place. It just felt odd.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the connection to that group of women in my mind is a little bit confusing because I don't really have like a full
Yeah,
understanding, and they show up in different places where I don't really know how much connection I have to it. And like they do the dances, like they do literally the locomotion. And what I got, and the strongest reason for them being there that I got is that when they were doing stuff like the locomotion, it felt way more like a home video made with a DSLR, and that's where it felt more creepy because I'm like, what? Oh man, it's just like a whole bunch of women that are not like the greatest of dancers, all just dancing to a song that is way out of style at this point. It doesn't fully fit in the movie, or we're watching them move around town to Black Tambourine by Beck, which almost doesn't feel in like it's in the same style of the movie
that's
either.
what it was. Yeah, that was a weird song.
Yeah, like
It wasn't. It didn't really fit the scene, but it was unsettling.
and it was like the only reason they had that particular song is it felt like it was the wrong mood for what
Song
they were
for the
showing.
moment.
And yet of course you're like this is it gets under my skin when you do that, when you're like wrong song for this scene. And it gets to you. Speaking of which, should shout out David Lynch did do some of the music on this
That's cool.
himself.
Nice.
He has a bunch of albums. If you've never listened to any of them, they're very
Oh shit, I
interesting,
had no
also
idea.
very strange. um and then this is jumping ahead to the very very end, the use of Sinner Man. I don't know if you watched the credits.
Is that the one with the Lord is good, or he's this lady just kept saying that the lyrics were like
No,
what are they called?
shockingly, that was actually a David Lynch song. I think he wrote it specifically for the movie. That was called Polish Poem.
I'm gonna look for my notes. I think I wrote down something.
Yeah, at the end, at least on the Criterion version that I watched, they do a like a full on dance scene and party to the song "Sinner Man" by Nina Simone. Um, and man, a David Lynch party looks like a fun place to be.
Or the most scariest place to be, if depending on who you are.
I suppose so. This particular one looked pretty fun.
Yeah, it did look fun. It was a weird way to end the film, I would say. Um,
It was like a
nothing worse
it was like it felt like a celebration of what you just like. You just made it through. Here's a scene where everyone is dancing.
yeah,
There's
with characters that aren't really in the film all that much.
Yeah, the lady with the wooden leg who they talked about once, but like it was the street lady who talked about her, right? And she'd killed 3 people in first grade or whatever.
No idea.
Yeah,
No idea.
yeah. Um, Shout out to Freddie shaking down all the actors. Freddie is Harry Dean Stanton's character. This is
Okay.
such a good way to like set this character up as someone who is at one point believable and at the other point completely sleazy. It's just him asking every single person for money.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah, what a con.
So good. He just gives this whole entire story, just like, you got $2, and of course
And
everyone there is like, oh god damn it, all right.
yeah, Justin Theroux's character Billy was very reluctant, or Devin was very reluctant to give him the money, but he stares him down to the point where he's like, "Fuck it, I just want this to stop." So
He's
he just gives them money.
he's like, I know it's very forward of me, but just holds his hand out like it should be mine. Um, Laura Dern's what the fuck face was phenomenal the whole way through because every time some weird shit was happening and it would pan to her, it looked like some weird shit was happening. Like she was just like, oh no, oh no.
We're all at one point Laura Dern's character,
Mm-hmm.
just with this confused look, like what is happening on screen.
100%. So, do you have anything else you specifically want to talk about?
Uh, no, I think I expressed all the opinions I have throughout the film, so I'm ready to push forward with my final thoughts.
Okay. I'll let you do your thing. Hit me up.
Okay, so yeah, final thoughts. Inland Empire. Next time your agent calls you to tell you about the killer role of a lifetime, think twice before saying yes. But don't think twice about watching this horrific, gut-wrenching film directed and written by David Lynch. It'll leave you bewildered and excited to tell the next person you see to watch this bizarre screenplay. Your patience during this epic film will have you feeling rewarded and thrilled to see another David Lynch film. I mean, I sure will. Overall, the music, the editing, camera work, story, the characters, all amazing. Like, I cannot express how much excitement I got from watching this film. Like, but at the same time, how terrified I was by the end. Like, for horror, I'm giving this like straight up a 10 out of 10. If you're a horror fan, check this out. If you want suspense, 10 out of 10. Check this out. And for the drama on screen, I'm giving this like a 9 out of 10. Like, there's so much tension and buildups that will leave you wanting to see the next thing that's going to happen. Like, it is jarring what you see on screen. I give this surreal depiction of Hollywood a 9.5 out of 10. Like this is like a damn good film for me. Like, I like this. Like, the thing that's gonna like not give it like a straight up 10 is just like the length. Like, I'm not sure how many times I'm gonna want to watch this, but like I'm definitely gonna go back to this like yearly. As far as October goes, like I'm gonna watch this during my October fear film month. Like, it's up there with The Shining. Like,
Hell yeah.
I want to watch this every year in October. Like, this is such a scary film for me.
Hell yeah. You want to get dark? You want to get in it? It's a good place for you. Um, Love that. Okay, so this film about a haunted script will leave you haunted. Um, Even past the few glaring difficulties I see as far as watching this with the length through the standard definition DSLR quality and through the sheer confusion that happens in each scene. It's impossible not to get sucked in while watching this movie if you're truly paying attention. The soundscape, if you will draw you in like no other. The imagery is unique and shocking and interesting. And the story can get your mind going into a bunch of different places. Now, while I have to throw out my conventional rubric for this film because it just doesn't fit into a conventional rubric, I am giving this movie a 9 out of 10. Now, mind you, I have some biases. I really do love David Lynch, but I went into this one ready to accept a movie that I couldn't get through. And instead, I found myself unable to stop thinking about it. It's hard to look at something like this and say that you shouldn't watch it or that it's not worth watching again because I'm almost positive if I watch it again a second time, I'm going to come out with a whole different set of thoughts, a different set of ideas, and it's going to be dependent on where I'm at when I watch it. And just like a good painting, it deserves to be looked at over and over again.
That part.
So, yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. I'm glad you liked it genuinely. I'm also glad that I liked it genuinely. It was an experience. I wasn't like necessarily ready for as much of an experience as it was.
I wasn't ready for all that either.
Straight up, dude. I was
I don't
like,
think I don't think anyone who's watched this film was ready to see what they saw on screen.
I've
Well, if
watched.
you did, you're a fucking liar. You're a
Yeah,
fucking liar. You did not expect what
So
what you saw on screen.
let me okay, to all the listeners and to you, Andrew, I have the easiest next step as far as to watching something that is phenomenal and wonderful. And this one should only be, I think it's like an hour long. If not, it's like maybe a little bit longer. Twin Peaks: The Return, episode 8. I've seen it on many places called the best episode of television of all time. And I have a hard time arguing with it. You don't need to watch all of Twin Peaks to watch this episode. You can enjoy this episode without the context. With the context, it's even better, but without the context, it's also
Just as good.
it's
If not.
it's it's fucking something, dude. Like it is.
All right.
When I watched it for the first time, because I was watching Twin Peaks: The Return as they were airing. When this one aired, I just got done and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" In the best way possible, because it's like set in this Twin Peaks universe, and it made enough sense to follow through, but also just for sheer imagery, it was one of the most creative pieces I've seen of anything. Me and Janice actually have a line from that we still say to each other all the time if we creep each other out, and it's the God of Light. Someone will know that if you see it, just because it is so well. Anyway, sorry to side note. If you want something that's quick and you need to watch it, and you're like, I need to see another piece of this story, watch Twin Peaks: The Return season 8. It came after this, and it definitely learned from this, and I'm seeing that now. But yeah, so we've given our final thoughts. You got
One
something
last thing.
else? Throw it.
I didn't because like I have this in the background, Inland Empires. We didn't even talk about the gold watch. We don't have to go too deep into it, but like it seems like such a small detail that makes a big difference in the film.
For me, the thought of the gold watch and like the burning a hole in the pantyhose and all that stuff, I thought it was a really good tool to get the viewers to have something to look for. And I would bet that there's probably more to it than that, but I was kind of like willing to be like, okay, I could settle on like that, because then you had the lady who had the bandages on her arm, and she was wearing a gold watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it's her. She's the one you have to get the watch from.
Yeah.
And like, I don't really know why I didn't really connect to
Yeah.
the...
I think that's probably the only loose end I think in this film that and they may have tied it. I have to watch it again. Like again, 3 hours, a lot of detail. There's gonna be things that you miss on the first watch.
Mm-hmm.
So do what you have to get through this film. Break it up into hour segments, but definitely watch this film.
Yeah, and I spoke that I watched it in 2 hour and a half segments. I don't recommend that, because again, I wanted to know so bad what happened next that I was just thinking about it constantly in between. So I do recommend, if you can set aside the 3 hours, set aside the 3 hours.
But if you can't, watch it in segments and then go back to it
Yeah.
and watch it in 1 hour and 3 hour sitting. I need to do that myself. I had watched it the first 20 minutes just to get like an idea, and then I was like, oh hell no, it's too late for this. I can't watch this right now.
It's fair.
And then I got back to it, and then I was like, I pushed through, and I'm glad I was able to watch it the second time without many interruptions. And yeah, again,
Well, I'm excited to hear what you think of the future David Lynch films that you watch.
oh yeah, I'll be sure to make note and bring it to the podcast as they come in my direction. Because right now I'm watching Spirited Away.
Yeah.
And I'll be sure to make note of that on the next podcast. But as I finish that, I'll be sure to watch more David Lynch. Like David Lynch's catalog is on HBO Max, which is amazing. I'm gonna watch Blue Velvet probably here soon.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the next one I watch.
Just side note, because I feel like I want to mention it. Because this is the episode to mention it in. So when I found out I was having my first son, the very day of, after I got home, me and Janice watched Eraserhead. That was my only request, and in a joyous manner. So figure that out if you want, psychologists. And then This is the guy from Eraserhead right here. For people who are viewing on the YouTube, you can see it. It's like one of my prominent tattoos, one of the ones I was
Let me see it.
happiest with.
I can't really see it. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, that's nice.
It's a very important scene in the film. Like I said, it just rest in peace, David Lynch. You meant a lot. So with that said, Andrew, it is your turn to choose a movie. What movie are you going to choose for us?
Yeah, we're sidestepping away from suspense and thriller. I think that this is may or may not be a thriller, but it's definitely not like a David Lynch film. We're going back and continuing the trilogy of imagination with Terry Gilliam's 1985 dystopian film Brazil.
Now, this is a movie that I had watched when I was like 15, but you know where it was? It was in that mindfuck movie pack that I keep talking about. It was so important to my taste in movies, and that bodes well for it. I'm excited to watch it again with a more clear and understanding mind. Like, I'm very excited to watch it again, so I think this is wonderful.
Hell
Uh,
yeah!
um, hell yeah! So we're gonna get some more Terry Gilliam, and we're gonna get Brazil. I know that's gonna make some people happy. It's all in the beans, and I'm just full of beans.
Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to Additional Crew Film Review. If you like this content, please check out our other episodes, and otherwise, please subscribe, give us a good rating. All these things help us to be seen a little bit more. We do have a letterboxed name is Additional Crew Film Review.